Just well, good afternoon. My name is Tom Rowe, and I would like to call the July 8th meeting of the Tree Advisory Commission to order. And we have a new note on our agenda here that states that all votes must be roll call, individual verbal votes with commissioner name stated first. So Commissioner Body is here, Commissioner Van Cora is here, and Commissioner Langer is here. Moving on to item 3, approval of the adjourned agenda. There's quite a bit of feedback in here. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second the agenda.
Okay, the motion by
Lisa Langer.
motion by Langer, seconded by
Thank you.
Van Cor to approve the agenda. Commissioner Body?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Commissioner Langer?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Cora?
Yes.
Yeah, Commissioner Romaine, yes. Okay, we're looking at the minutes of the May 7th meeting. Are there any changes or amendments or can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 7th meeting as it's distributed?
I approve.
Okay, motion by Body, seconded by,
Lisa Langer will second.
okay, by Langer to approve the May meeting minutes. Commissioner Body,
Yes.
Commissioner Langer,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Kura,
Yes.
Commissioner Romaine, yes. So the minutes are approved. Moving on to old business. Item 5.1, 2020 City Reimbursement Programs and Budget Update was sent to us earlier today in a email from Tom Schmitz. Any discussion on that?
Yes, I noted that in the budget, there is a $300 disbursement for the home show, and the home show did not happen. And so it seems like that money needs to come back to our budget, or put back in our budget.
Oh, that, yeah, we did that
Okay.
last time.
That was addressed in the May 7th meeting, and it's in the minutes of the May 7th meeting that we had a motion that was adopted to bring that $300 back into the budget. And I can take that up with Tom Schmitz when he returns from his vacation. The tree planting has not really been a big project citywide, but any other discussion on that? Okay, I don't know that we need a motion to adjust that. It's just an item of old business. Derek Nelson is not here, so I don't know that we're going to get a PUC update or news. Emerald Ash Borer update. John Nisley is not here. Discussed ash treatments for city lands has got my name on it. There are pour-on treatments that use systemic insecticides that can be used to treat for emerald ash borer, along with many other insect pests. Those are something that landowners can do on their own. If the city wished to do that, they'd probably have to have somebody on staff who has a pesticide applicator's license that for the proper category that they're using. Those insecticides are available widely at lawn and garden stores. And then the other treatments are an injection, and I think the only vendor that's doing that locally is Bellix Tree Service. The pour-on treatments have to be done annually. The injection treatments are good for 2 years. So
What is Tom, can you explain what the first choice is before injection? I just didn't understand.
well,
Paint on, you said?
the pour-on
Oh,
method.
pour on.
Pour-on. It comes in a jug. You apply it to the
Oh,
area
around.
where the
Oh,
roots are around the tree,
Oh,
and
okay.
water it in. And then the injection system, the vendor brings a pressurized system that injects the insecticide into the tree, very similar to what was done with fungicides for Dutch elm disease when we went through that siege
Okay.
in the 80s.
Tom, is that something that needs to be repeated on a yearly basis, or is it a one-time treatment, or?
The pour-on treatments have to be effective, have to be applied every year during the growing season. And the systemic insecticides, the injection method, has to be done every 2 years. So even if the tree has just started getting emerald ash borer infections in it, the systemic insecticides can be used to kill the larvae that are in the tree. But it's most effective if you keep the treatments up either annually or semi-annually. And if people have a tree that they're very attached to or it's key to their landscape, this is probably an option for them. In terms of what's occurring on the city lands, you know, there's no one here to ask. I discussed it a little bit with Tom Schmitz, and I don't know if he's looking for direction or not, but
Have there been any trees identified on city property as being?
I don't know if, for
Important
example,
or-
Park and Rec has looked at the city park lands to see if there's any ash trees that are kind of key for the site, but do we want to give some direction to Park and Rec, or the other big chunk of city land is the cemetery? Or do we want to just bring it up informally with Park and Rec at this point?
A fair amount on bike trails also. Fair amount of ash trees on the bike trail too. There are.
You know, there are, just anecdotally, I didn't do any inventory along the bike trail, but I know on South Market Park, if you're familiar with South Market Park,
Yes.
where the bike trail goes diagonally up the hill,
Right.
on the lower side of the bike trail is just about a pure stand of green ash, and I
Green
don't know.
ash, yep.
Yeah. That would be a very expensive treatment there, because you'd have to use the injection method on that, because the pour-on method would go way over how much pesticide you can apply on a per acre basis to treat
Oh,
those
okay,
trees.
there's a limit to that. Okay.
Okay, if it's the wish of the commission, I can just talk informally to Tom Schmitz, and we can bring it back at our next meeting.
I think that'd probably be the best way, because you're gonna have to see if there's
Okay.
budget concerns for it and everything.
Yeah, and if he would deem any trees, if he knows of any trees that meet that, you know, being special or being key to a certain spot, I mean, that would be helpful for us to know as well.
Okay. Make myself a note here. Okay, moving on, Buckthorn update and Conservation Corps crew, Ellen Van Cora and Jordy Veit.
Jordy Veit, 1400 North Garden Street in Wall, Minnesota. So just a quick update for you on the Covered Up project that we're doing down along the bike trail there, kind of down by the Ridgeway by German. The seeds have been planted. We'll get to that in a moment, but now that you can see my pictures. If you were interested, these are sites across the state. So this is the entire project. Metropolitan area, and then some other ones scattered throughout the state as well. So all the sites that they set out to have volunteers for with this, they did fill all them spots in this round.
Great.
Kind of a overview of the project. This was back in summer of 2019. Was kind of when I originally started to bring this up to the Tree Commission. Then I worked with Ellen in the fall for site selection, which had to be approved by the U of M with pictures and information that I had to fill out. Buckthorn was removed from the site. There was actually quite a bit already taken out, some of the bigger stuff, and then there was just some little stuff that had to be removed early this year. So we did final buckthorn. May 11th, I did the plots, which you'll see some pictures of here shortly. And then those were also seeded at that time. Observations were submitted at that time. That will be an ongoing thing throughout the project for them to keep track of. And we'll be doing different observations throughout the summer and fall with that. Buckthorn seeds then, there's 2 areas in each square. These were set up May 25th. They were a little bit later, which is fine. These are what we're going to use to measure which of the seed mixes is doing what they want to do. So that's kind of our control. We have 3 plots again that are seeded with the native seed mixes and 3 that aren't. All 6 plots got that buckthorn seed treatment. Weeding will take place 2 to 3 times per year. I have done a little bit this year, and the point of that is to work on keeping other invasives out. Also, kind of keeping the buckthorn under control because we want to measure specific ones. I have not had much of a problem with anything in there, other than I have 1 square that has quite a bit of garlic mustard in it, and we have gotten permission. Now I'm going to go in and start removing that garlic mustard as well. So that will be coming up. I'll probably actually go out tomorrow and do that. But in the squares, the buckthorn's being cut at ground level. We're not going to use any herbicides because we don't want to affect any of the native seed mixes that are coming out. Outside the squares then, again, we're doing the same thing. We're cutting out the buckthorn or other invasives. Here we're looking for buckthorn that's taller than a foot. We want to keep that down for the time being with this. So that's kind of the overview of what has taken place and what will be taking place. I'll talk a little bit more about that briefly here. So this summer, just a little bit more on the weeding. I kind of covered that top part already. But the end of summer is when we're going to do our first initial measurement. We'll measure the survival and growth of the test buckthorn. Estimate areas covered by different types of plants. And again, I'll be taking pictures of the squares and the tree canopy. And one other important note, again, as I already said, there will not be any herbicide use during this. So it'll just be cutting. Sometimes if it's outside the square, we can do a little hand removal, but we don't want to be doing that inside the squares because we don't want to disturb the soil with the native seed mix. So this picture here is showing just kind of an overview of the area. So a lot of this green that you're seeing in here was some of the smaller buckthorn that was in there to start out with. Some of the bigger buckthorn had been removed. It's hard to tell in here, but I believe right in here somewhere is where this couple of the bigger ones were that we had to remove yet this spring. Tree canopy, not very good at taking pictures up in the air, but so you can kind of see there's some open spots and some shaded spots as well. The plots were tried to evenly distribute so that hopefully they have fairly equal growing conditions, at least the best we can. So this was kind of the start of that. Then the other thing we had to do was to map out the plots. So these are our 6 different plots that you'll see. They are kind of marked with different where trees are and stumps are, that type of thing. I actually have a much more detailed map than this one. This is the one that gets submitted. But I have a detailed one with a lot of measurements on it, so I know where each of them corners are. But just for the purpose of just kind of display, I don't have the measurements on here. So that was the other thing that had to be submitted.
Mr. Veet,
Yes,
what size are the squares?
they're 5 by 5.
Okay.
Yep, each one is a 5 by 5.
And
So-
then, did you plant in the squares, or did you, are you just looking at natural regeneration?
No, so as what happens is some of them were seeded with the native seed mix and some of them were just left. So square 1 and 3 on the top were seeded, and then number 5 was seeded.
Okay.
So half of them are seeded with the native seed mix, which I'll show you in a bit. The other half were just left as controls.
Okay, so in that native seed mix, what's the sensitivity to, you've got about 100% canopy over all the,
Yeah, it's there's a very wide variety in
Okay.
there. I'll show you the list of actually
Okay,
the
thank
species
you.
coming up. So yeah, good question. Before I get to that, these are, in case you're curious, these are some of the species I found in that area, mostly in that larger square. But there was an ash tree, there's some box elder maples in there. Lily of the Valley is kind of near the bike trail. Dame's Rocket and garlic mustard were some of our invasives that show up in there. Virginia waterleaf, I've seen a little bit of that, a little bit of ground ivory, and then there's several jack in the pulpit as well that are in there. So that's kind of the species that were in there to start with. This is the plots, and this is kind of a goofy angle, but you can see that each of the plots are flagged in each of the four corners. The blue ones are the unseeded, the pink ones are the seeded. So this is kind of the initial setup of that. A closer look at that, you can kind of see here's this would be plot 1. So this is an area that's seeded. This blue one over here would be an area that is unseeded, and then kind of rotating through the other ones.
Jordy, did you plant, did I read, did you plant buckthorn seeds?
Yes, they
Oh, you
do
did.
plot
Okay.
us a few in each one. Yep.
Okay, and
So,
then you planted also native seeds.
yeah. Yep, we started with the native seed mix, and then there was some buckthorn seeds added in there
Okay.
later on as our way to measure. And incidentally, when I was out there the other day,
Yep,
I have yet to see any of the buckthorn coming up.
interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, it
this was just a-
germinates over 5 to 6 years, I don't know,
Yeah.
but,
Yep. So, this is just a close-up of, well, this is plot 1. So this was seeded with some of the native grass. One other example, plot 2. This is unseeded, so this will just be left as is. And then to get to the seed was divided into large seed and small seed. The large seed, this is kind of what it looks like here. So each of the 3 squares got some large seed. If this makes it easier for you to see, these are some of the seeds. This is a little tricky. I kind of had to take a try at this a few days because the wind was a issue, and I didn't want to do it when it was real windy because the seeds would blow away. But in this large one, these are some of the species we have in there. We have some grasses, some flowers, and some trees. The grasses, when I was out at the site recently, are doing really well. There's quite a few of the grasses coming up. Some of the other ones I'm not so sure on. We'll see as time goes on how well those come up. So we have bottlebrush grass, rye, wild rye, blue stem, choke cherry, dogwood, black cherry, American basswood, as far as our large seed mix. Any questions? Okay. Then
I don't know if anybody is calling.
the small seed mix is similar to the same process. Each packet takes up 1 square, and it's just much smaller, as you can see by the image here. Same idea, it's just really small seeds. And then this is our species for the small seed mix, which is about 4 grams in each one. So we have some grasses, flowers, a lot of flowering ones in this one. So black-eyed Susan, figwort, golden Alexander, red columbine, switchgrass, that type of stuff. Any questions on that?
where did you get the seed? You had to gather them yourself, or
No,
you
U of
were-
M. Yep,
The U
and
of
they
M.
are also, one other note, the seeds are all sourced from local groups.
Minnesota
So,
sources.
yeah, yep. So I'm drawing a blank on some of the names, even though I've heard them before.
Interesting,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, so they tried to get them in different places.
Are they in a
from
little
the-
sawdust or something that,
No, they're just, this is what they
that's,
come look like.
that's all seed?
Yep,
Yep.
yep. Each one of these goes in 1 plot.
Oh,
So each of our 3 seeded plots get 1 small seed and 1 large seed.
Oh, interesting. Do you just kind of lightly rake them in?
Just just over the top. You don't even have. They didn't even have us cover it with soil. Just lightly put them on the surface.
And you don't water them or anything?
No, just let nature take its course. I actually had pretty good timing because I think it rained 2 days after I put the seed down, so that worked out really well. So.
It seems like, looking at your seed mixes, that most of the plants are pretty intolerant of shade,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I thought they were going to have a little bit more variety in there. But a lot of these seed mixes are ones that they tested at other sites and found to be
Well,
successful.
it's just that,
So,
you know, you remove, most of the buckthorn is an understory plant under a canopy.
yeah.
And if you don't mess with the overstory, you're dealing with a lot of shade, so it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see how this goes.
Yep. And like I say, the grasses have really come up and grown really fast. So I think that's maybe, we
Be
see how
in-
it works out, but I think the grass
Be
is,
interesting to see how much basswood you get, because that's a very, very, very difficult plant to
It is,
generate
yeah.
from seed.
yep, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yep, Yeah.
Basswood is? From,
Terribly hard to
yeah,
grow from seed. The
Yep.
red elderberry should be interesting, because that was the only plant that I saw that would crowd out buckthorn. So,
yeah, yep. Then I think that's mostly what I had. Yeah, this is the sign
Huh.
that the U of M provided. I've been switching it out. It gets wet. I've been laminating it. I kind of have a better idea in progress so that I don't have to keep switching it out when it gets wet, but I've been busy with some other things. So that's kind of coming up, but this is a sign that they have just to try to kind of, you know, tell people what's going on, direct them to stay on the bike trail. I haven't had much of an issue. I had once where flags got moved around a bit and some pulled out. But again, I have the measurements, so we have the backup for it. It's just nice that come picture time that the flags are there, because then you can easily see in the pictures what area you are on. So any questions or comments?
It's cool. Yeah. You haven't had any more vandalism or?
No.
Great.
No, I seen the deer had rearranged a couple flags the other day walking through there, but that's to be expected. So no,
Yep. They're
No.
part of the picture.
yeah.
They spread a lot of stuff.
So yep, no, it's going good. So and we'll be, I think September probably is the next time we'll grab data and submit that.
Is this 2 or 3 year project with Jordy?
2.
2,
Yep.
24 months, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So-
So
Great, I'm so glad you signed up for it.
we'll follow this year and next year, and then it might go into the spring of the 3rd year. I can't remember exact timeline
Sure.
on that, if they counted the setting it up as the first year or the afterwards. So there might actually be one more year in there. Questions?
I commend you for taking this on.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
so
this
glad
is-
you did it, yeah.
This is really important work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Very much so.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Moving on, is there a conservation corps crew update? Commissioner Van
No, I gave that, I didn't hear, I gave the comment that I thought that it was better that Mr. Roloff was probably better suited for our needs than the Conservation Corps because they wanted to just saw is what my, I was kind of, Tom and the head of the Conservation Corps are kind of the two that, but they made the comment that they weren't going to move the logs at all. And where they would need to saw that's what I need, is to have those heavy logs taken up to German Street. Most of the buckthorn close to the trail itself is already down, was what my comment was, and I just expressed my opinion to Tom, and that was that. I haven't heard anything.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Utility billing informational insert, and that's, I see it's Derek Nelson and T. Romaine, and I thought that the last meeting we had discussed that you were gonna take the lead on this one with Derek.
Excuse
So-
me, Tom, are we done with, I have some other stuff to say about buckthorn, but
Oh,
is
I'm
that a
sorry.
different?
Let's
Is this
back
a
up.
different? Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was kind of figuring it out today, and this is the 10th year that we've, started working on buckthorn and invasives, so I think the stated goal on the card is that to make New Ulm buckthorn free, but it's become very clear that other invasives, you take out the buckthorn and the other invasives show. And they're rather new as far as I know. I never heard of garlic mustard or Dame's Rocket. Sure heard of Canada thistle, but anyway, so there's a lot less invasives, let's put it that way. And I know ag people are battling different ones than we do, but anyway, at April, since the last report, there's been 144 volunteer hours put in, plus a few that Brenda worked on her own. Brenda gets paid, and Jordy Veit volunteers his time. He has 2 other very busy jobs, plus his research project, but when he has some free time, he helps us. Challenge, I just want to talk a little bit about the challenge of buckthorn removal in private property. As you know, a quarter of the bike trail from 12th to 16th is on private property, and I mentioned almost every meeting that, it'd be nice if, and the owner won't let the buckthorn be removed, and land is not good for anything else. It floods, and it's just, so it'd be nice if we could acquire that, but I don't know if Tom's, done anything with that. Kraft Foods has a large concentrated area of real heavily buried trees. I talked to them. Mr. Carta is in charge of grounds. He said that Kraft would not, release people or pay people on Kraft time to help remove it. But if I wanted to, we could. That's the thing. I would like to get that taken care of before the berries mature, to ripen and get eaten by the birds. Let's see. So those are the two areas I'd like to mention. Just want to talk about the importance of everybody trying to keep their invasives down. That sad news is that Adams Park in just one season has been, I guesstimate, pretty close, I think, 70% overtaken with garlic mustard. And that's because, I don't know how many acres Shells Park has, but I'm told that their entire hillside down to the Cottonwood River is garlic mustard. And it floods, and it's flooded several times, and therefore Adams Park is completely taken over with garlic mustard. So basically, we surrendered. Jordy and I were working on some stuff right up close to the, because thinking that was all there was, and then I took a spin through it, and oh my gosh, it's pretty ugly. So it's just important that you know, we try to, everybody does their part if they've got private land or whatever to try to control, and you can't control flooding. So Adams Park is kind of Kaputski as far as any diversity. We did a great job of, along with an Eagle Scout, of taking out all the buckthorn. Now, the other two that have invasives that have totally exploded in the last year or two are Canada thistle, which propagates both by seed and by rhizomes. And so we have spent a great deal of time taking out Canada thistle. We're trying to narrow it down to the, with just Brenda and I, we can't do any more than concentrate on the bike trail from 7th to 16th. But we've got most of it out. And I think in May we concentrated on garlic mustard before it went to seed. And we got a decent amount out, and then we turned our efforts to Dame's Rocket and tried to get that out before it went to seed, but we found this huge reservoir of Dame's Rocket at the last part of the bike trail, about 15th south. It's partly utility easement, but it's private property. It had a lot of buckthorn, which we were allowed to take out. But once we got in there and working on private property, it's been pretty pretty difficult, time consuming. But it's almost out. We didn't get the Dame's Rocket out before a lot of it went to seed, but we're going to work on it quicker. I mean, try depending on next spring. So we just don't want that nice part of the bike trail to be overtaken with either garlic mustard, Dame's Rocket, or Canada thistle. And we've worked, and you know, the buckthorn, I used to think buckthorn was the enemy #1, but you know, you can, as long as you've got the buried trees out of there, you know, you've got 2-3 years, and it doesn't go anywhere. You still can, you know, as long as you've got the female trees out of there, you're not getting any new stuff. So anyway, that's it. Always looking for volunteers. My new thing, you know, people say, keep up the good work. Thanks for what you do. And I said, I'm always looking for volunteers, and they never stop. Oh, anyway. Any questions?
Okay,
Oh, you know, I just have to tell you, do you know what Dame's Rocket looks like?
I do not.
It looks like phlox. And people actually plant it. Brenda says she knows 2 of her neighbors that found it in the wild and planted it in their garden. Well, it's not phlox. It's a cousin of garlic mustard. It's in the mustard family. So it looks so pretty, and people just, oh, isn't that nice? Why are you pulling out that beautiful flower? And, oh, well, so that's Dame's Rocket. I did make one house visit, very productive, large lot on Summit Avenue. She's very knowledgeable, has been taking out her buckthorn. She had Dame's Rocket. I said, oh, this has got to come out. And I had my dabber and my lopper, and I said, oh, oh, no, that's Fox. Nope. And then I educated her, and so that was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you have people that are engaged and want to keep invasives out of their own yards, and then there's a lot of people from Summit down to Garden that have taken out their buckthorn. I can't speak to garlic mustard and Dame's Rocket and all that, but you know, it's just through education. So, and we advertise that we do house calls and stuff like that. And I wrote a couple ditties in Park and Rec column about Dame's Rocket. So, I think that's it.
The easiest way to tell the difference between the Dame's Rocket and the phlox, Dame's Rocket has 4 petals on the flowers,
Good. Thanks. I don't have. Okay. Yeah.
and the phlox
Yeah.
has 5.
Okay. Good. It's such a pretty color. It's a magenta. Looks so pretty. You know, it's so difficult when you're into invasives that, like, I was going down 10th South, and you know, you can just see these. You can see thistle, and you can see Dame's Rocket, and you just want to stop it. You just have to. You know, you can't just educate. I guess. It'd be nice if we could get a picture and put in. I tried to get Clay. How do you pronounce Clay's last name? Shoot. Journal guy, Clay.
Yep.
You know, to get so I could get a photo, but he didn't show up, and then oh, we've gotten publicity. Maybe next year we can get a picture.
I was just gonna add, Ellen, if you're looking for photos, I'd have to sort through mine, but I may have photos of probably garlic mustard, Dame's Rocket, and several other ones.
Oh, okay.
Because I am in the process of writing some invasive species fact sheets. I'm trying to get
Okay.
photos, so yeah.
Yeah, Jordy, is it right? Your interest in biology and is in botany is with invasives, right?
Yes.
So you
Yep,
can
that's
add
where all
whatever
my
you want, you know.
Yeah, that's where all my research, undergrad, in-grad, has all been
Yeah, right.
the plant-based invasives.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anytime you want to educate me too.
Well, as an advisory commission, what do you think our role is in combating invasives in the city of New Ulm? I mean, we don't have staff.
Right.
We have,
I don't know.
there's a
I've
small cadre of volunteers that are working very
very
hard on
a
this.
tiny cadre, I would say.
But, so how can we further this effort?
I think the best way is just trying to educate more people on what it is.
Oh,
You know,
we invite, and I don't say it sarcastic, I said, we'd love to have you volunteer, you know, when they're walking by, and they're the people that use the bike trail. The bikers go kind of fast, but, a lot of moms, of course, moms and strollers, they're not gonna volunteer. But whatever,
Okay, if we move on, the next thing we were gonna
Thank
talk
you.
about was the utility billing informational insert. So is that a place where we can
oh,
look for,
look
get
for.
information out or seek volunteers?
That would be an excellent idea. How often do that utility insert come
We
out?
generally spring and August.
It's August.
So the next one that's coming up is August, and we probably need
The spring one would be
okay, so maybe what we think about is that, you know, is the next spring's
yes. that
PUC
would
insert
be
is on invasives. And I
invasives,
will make
yeah.
a note of that.
Other than buckthorn, yeah.
Well, Beckthorn could have a part in it, but, so where are we on the August informational insert?
Well, it said you, but I'm not sure that was you. I
No,
think it was
That's
Ellen.
just
it was
that got
me and
carried
Ellen.
over from an old agenda. That was, you were gonna kind of run with this with
Did
Derek.
we fall down on our
Well, we'll do it.
promise
We'll do
for
it.
August?
Right.
Yeah. Because we'll talk to Derek.
Okay,
And I think the idea was that we would do the Emerald Ash Borer, the frequently asked questions, and maybe go over what the plan is going forward from the city as far as when planting's gonna be, what are the species, some of those information's just kind of a Q&A kind of thing.
okay, then, you know,
Okay.
John Nisley kind of put the grant together, and Jeff Anderson was in, you know, he's the person who kind of takes care of the species list for the city. And he worked with John to figure out what they were gonna have for species for planting, so you maybe wanna pull Jeff into the loop a little bit too.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking that if we could put a sentence in there, it says, you know, if we're not getting an inch of rain a week, you need to water your trees, because there's an awful lot of wilting trees around the city right now.
Is that what it is, inch of water?
Pardon me?
Inch of water a week when it's hot weather?
You know, generally, a good way to water trees is to get a small sprinkler and just let it run and give it a good soaking, about an inch, and then don't water it. You want to deep water trees and not just sprinkle them,
Sprinkle, yeah.
because you just encourage the roots to be close to the surface, and you want them deeper to pull the moisture out of the soil.
Yep.
If you need help with the utility building, let me know.
Think so.
Glad to help you with that. Can we move on to big tree contest? And then the deadline was Monday.
Yeah, but when we had two, right, submissions that as of,
I don't know how many entries we have.
I heard we had 3.
3?
it was two at the last meeting.
Yeah, that
Right.
was in May. So I would be willing to help measure the 3
Yeah.
trees.
And
Would you?
I'll do that again this year.
Okay, well, we'll schedule that with Tom and bring that to the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get the information from them and get the sheets they turned in.
We'll see how many trees were actually buckeye and how many are horse chestnut.
Yeah.
We may want to put the biggest horse chestnut.
Has horse chestnut been or
Well,
that's not a
it's-
native tree, is it? Or-
Well, both of the trees are not native to Minnesota, but they have been widely planted. Okay, new business, consider resolution thanking staff that developed and carried out, et cetera, et cetera. So I brought this, and I wanted to have a resolution of thanks to the city administration, and it was largely John Nisley who put the grant together. And the project itself, in engineering, was largely the work of Jeff Anderson. And then Public Works and the street departments did the stump grinding, and Jeff shared names with me of Landon Hoffman and Justin Schweiss that did most of the stump grinding. So, you know, I think that we should have a motion. I would make a motion to thank those folks, and I can write up the resolution later on. And so I would make that motion, and I would entertain a second.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Body. And I guess we had a roll call vote. So Commissioner Body,
Yes.
okay, Commissioner Langer,
Yes.
Commissioner Vancouver,
Yes.
and Commissioner Romaine, yes. And I was also wanting to add to a resolution of thanks to retired city engineer Steve Kohler for his years of service to the Tree Advisory Commission. He was a very big supporter. And I would make that motion.
I'll second that also.
Second by Commissioner Body, and roll call vote again, Commissioner Body,
Yes.
Commissioner Langer,
Yes.
Commissioner Vancouver,
Yes.
and Romaine votes yes. Yes.
That was Landon Rathman, R-A-T-H-M-A-N.
I'll get with you after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wanted to correct you on that.
I can't hear at a distance, so. The only other thing was in my notes here was that the budget item that's for the PUC inserts has been largely used up by the spring insert. And I was going to suggest that we pay for the August insert with the balance of the of printing item that's in our budget, the home show money, and then start to spend some of the education money that we haven't spent. If you remember back to the budget update that Park and Rec Director Schmitz gave us, and I can take that up with Tom when he gets back from his vacation. Okay, is there anything for the good of the organization? Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for September 3rd. And there being no more business to be brought forth in front of the Tree Advisory Commission, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.